is up in the Northland. We're going to go over some older cases here and then introduce some of the new ones. So North Dakota, well, there wasn't a whole lot that came in on that one. There's two of them that came in, but I can only tell you about one, and I'll get to the reasoning for that here in a second. But the first one, 139048, came in October 22nd, and that was in Bismarck at about 10 o'clock at night. Anna Scott is the assigned investigator for this one. It reads, numerous lights seen in and around an hour period. All were in the same area of the sky. Some were about as bright as Venus, others were dimmer. They appeared to pulsate a bit. They always disappeared by just fading out. At one time, I saw 4 of them appear at once and travel slowly in different directions before fading out. Some traveled horizontally, others traveled vertically up, did not always travel in a straight line. A plane flew in the general direction, and it was obvious that it was a plane. I saw an estimated 30 of them, but it's hard to tell if they were the same ones. This person has quite a bit of experience with looking at objects in the sky, and I've never seen anything like this. Could not get video because they're either too dim or I couldn't get my camera recording at the time, which is completely understandable. Some of these cameras don't record well at night. So anyhow, Anna is on that one, and we'll find out what that's all about. On the next case, like I said, it was an ERT case, which is an experiencer resource team. And those are kept strictly confidential between the ERT team and the experiencer. So I can tell you that we had one, but I can't tell you anything else other than that. Minnesota cases. I had a few of those come in. Most of them were down south, but we're going to try to focus on the ones up north. I will go over we talked about last month. So in this one, 137552, took place the end of June in Lakeville, a little bit after 10 o'clock. Joel Henry was the investigator on that one. That got reassigned to Bill McNuff. The narration was, I've witnessed over a dozen high-altitude UFOs with erratic flight patterns appearing and disappearing over the last 4 months. So this is the video, and this is what it looks like.
Look at this.
You can kind of see the stars in the background for a reference.
Look at it move. Look at it move.
I can't tell if it's going in a straight line or if it's moving around.
See it?
Kind of tough to tell. This is a tidbit. If you do zoom in on something, feel free to zoom in, but then zoom back out relatively quick so we can get reference. Because just the light in the sky like that, light with a dark background, can't really tell what that is. I see we're zoomed back out now. You can kind of see a few stars in there. I don't think this is very long.
That's not my hand moving.
I'm looking at your screen and looking at
Zoom back out now. You can kind of see some clouds maybe and some trees down there. That helps with kind of getting the big picture, being able to see it with a little more reference out there. That could be an International Space Station, but this person says they've seen quite a bit of them, and I haven't studied this at all. I'm not Bill, so we'll let him do it. We'll let him decide what it is. It was completed, and Bill decided that it was an unknown. Part of his summary says, while the witness took at least 9 videos of various night lights, some in very interesting formations between February 11th and June 29th of 2024. The formations on the 11th, February 11th, were particularly impressive. These lights showed no FAA requiring running lights or navigation lights, as they're called. And it's unlikely that conventional craft flew in these formations. While 4 different reports should have been filed for the 4 different dates, it's my conclusion that the witness photographed some anomalous objects, and this report will be given the disposition of unknown UAV. So, pretty interesting. Let's see this one in Minnetrista, however you want to say that. Case 137570 took place in June of 2024 at about noon. And Linda Folkarts Maleka is on this one. Square object moving slowly into the wind. Let's take a look at that. Kind of see the background there. Unfortunately, the camera focuses on the mirrors and stuff, but you can kind of see that black square blob in the sky behind them. That's what they're looking at. He hops out at one point to try to see it a little bit better. he loses it. That's understandable if you're trying to look through the camera to find it, so he's kind of looking out, finding it that way. But I wasn't there, so I don't know what he was going through. He hops out here and tries to get another look at it. I think, yeah, there he goes. But again, he's focused on not him because the camera autofocus. Focused on him. If he'd gotten kind of away from the truck, he might have been able to see it a little better. That's about it. Yep. This has been completed. Let's see what Linda came up with. Disposition and IFO, identified flying object, man-made object. So part of her summary says this object is virtually certainly an aerial advertising sign. Disposition, IFO, man-made object. So we've seen that many times before, believe it or not. That sign is so big, and the airplanes that drag them are relatively small aircraft. They can be pretty tough to see, especially with the clouds the way that they were. So that's understandable. That's exactly what I went to when I first saw that. That's exactly what I thought it might be. So with that one, all right, 137-832 in July of this year, somewhere in Lincoln County, at about well, it says 10:30. Obviously, it's pretty darn bright even in the summer for 10:30. So that time might be off on that one. Tom Maher, who's the state director for Minnesota MUFUN, is on that one. Let's see here. The narrative was, or the narrative, sorry, was I was riding in a car, taking pictures of the Buffalo Ridge wind towers near the Minnesota-South Dakota border. In this particular photo, I saw a dark object shoot past extremely fast from southwest to northeast and happened to catch these objects in the photo. After the photo was taken, there was nothing flying around as far as I could see. So I took several other pictures in the same area with nothing showing up in any of the photos. So this is the one photo that she's got, he or she. I think it said it was a she. Anyhow, it's just the one photo that person's got. The original one there on the right, and then on the left, zoomed in with the objects that are circled. And Tom said it was an unknown UAV. So let's read what he says here. He says, weather conditions were very good. There are wispy clouds at best. The picture seems to show three very similar or same objects in three different locations in the view screen in different sizes, which I attribute to being different distances of each object. The objects seem to be flying in formation at the speed at which the witness reports from the live picture. They couldn't be birds or bugs. So on your camera, you can do kind of a live version where you take a picture and it's like 1 or 2 seconds worth of picture. Well, that's what this person took. So it's almost has a video to it. So anyhow, at the speed at which the witness reports from the live pic, they couldn't be birds or bugs. They also do not appear to be planes or helicopters. Checking flight radar 24, which is a great place to check for aviation aircraft. Kind of a oxy or not an oxymoron. That's one of those two words that mean the same thing. Anyhow, there was nothing in the area in that exact time when the picture was taken. Since the objects seem to be different size, I don't see how this could be some sort of reflection or refraction in the lenses. It's great. They seem to be three separate objects, despite how similar they are. I'm always skeptical when the witness doesn't see the objects with their naked eye, but only sees it in a photograph afterwards. They're not lens flares, and based on flight radar 24 and the weather and the clarity of these pictures, I can only determine that these are unidentified anomalous phenomenon, closing it as unknown UAV. Interesting. All right, another one from September. This happened in Bemidji. Steve Hero was the investigator on this one. Let's see, it says at approximately 9 p.m., because there's no pictures here. At approximately 9 p.m., I saw a bright light in my periphery while sitting outside. When I looked, it was a star moving in a circular way in the night sky, so I called my wife to come out. Just as she started walking through the house, the bright light started to dim, and she missed it by seconds. While she stood outside with me, 7 or 8 stars moved in a circular pattern above us. Most came from the east. Most came from east by northeast. One of the two came from the west. They weren't moving in a straight line like the ISS, Starlink, or an airplane. And at one point, 3 of them stopped momentarily in the sky and made a triangle pattern before going on. So let's see what what Steve has to say. Unknown UAV. Okay. He says, when I spoke to the witness, he seemed sincere and willing to talk. He was somewhat familiar with things in the sky from his military background. The first light he saw, which he said was not too far away and quite low in the sky, may have actually been a misidentified small airplane. So Steve actually dug into this a little bit with Flight Radar 24, and he came up with Flight 605, well, aircraft November 605 November Romeo, which is a Cessna Alpha 185, is a type of plane commonly used by bush pilots. It's actually a very common plane for a lot of people, and up here it's relatively cheap and good solid aircraft. It approached the airport from the south, landed just before 9 p.m. So the first flight probably was that. He lives only a few miles from the airport, and he would have seen this approaching from the south, and it would have been at very low altitude since it was about to land. Well, the second group of lights that came in from both east and west were moving in a circular motion that cannot be explained away so easily. Since they're moving in a sort of circular pattern and then stopped, made a formation for about 5 seconds, that would rule out any type of satellite. So I would classify this as an unknown UAV. And here's another one. Oh, this one was mine. Okay, so 138640 came in October. Scott County, down by the Minneapolis area. White orb going into the sky. So you have to kind of squint, but if you look in the middle of this picture or in the middle of this video, that's where it is, and you can watch it. So he's looking up, straight at, well, obviously he's moving around, but you can see it's straight ahead, and then as you watch it, it's going to kind of go up and disappear into the clouds. And then once it disappears, I'm going to turn it off. There it is, and there it is, right in the cloud, and it disappears. So I was able to figure out exactly where this was. He said Scott County. He was driving. It was morning, so I knew he was driving to the east. Tried to pick up the some of the landmarks on the ground and got the spot for it. So I came up with it was an airplane, UFO man-made object, and this was my reasoning. And this is kind of long-winded, and I apologize, but I just kind of want you guys to understand where I come from when I do investigations. I try to be as thorough as possible. After reviewing the video and speaking with the witness, I cannot for certain or with a 90% probability, which is what we need to call it an unknown. I cannot with a 90% probability call this object an unknown UAV. However, with about an 80 to 85% probability, I believe the witness saw an aircraft taking off from Flying Cloud Airport, which was just north of where he was when he did the video. The bright light seen would be consistent with either the tail navigation light or the tail logo lights, or a combination of both lights together. The FAA requires navigation lights to be on at any time the sun is down. So the tail light should have been on because the sun wasn't quite up or was pretty close to it. At least when he took off, the sun was down. Technically, official sunrise. So the light probably would have still been on. Logo lights are normally on at the same time because there's two switches are next to each other usually, and it just makes sense. You want to be seen. I did try to look up flights using Flight Radar 24. However, my account only goes back a year, and this happened 3 years ago. So if another field investigator has an account that goes back further, please let me know so we can check it out, make sure it's not an airplane. So I used a little bit of trigonometry, got the math skills out. The object was about 50 to 100 feet wide, give or take, an angular distance of about 7.57 miles, which puts it 5 miles south of the Minneapolis International Airport at 8,500 feet. Now I figured out the 8,500 feet because that's what the meteorological reports are saying what the cloud layers are at. So 5 miles south, 8,500 feet, because that's when it disappeared into the clouds. It could be possible that sun was reflecting off the aircraft. However, since it's white, I ruled that out because it was early morning. The sun would have been coming through the atmosphere. You probably would have had an orange hue to it. So I don't think that was sun glint. If it was orange, I probably would have called it that, but it wasn't. It was white, so I'm not going to call it sun glint. So I'm going to rule that out. So pending any more information than I can get on aircraft patterns on that date and time, I'm ruling this case as an UFO man-made object. So that begs, well, how come if I'm not sure, why am I saying that it's not an unknown? So MUFUN asked that we try to make sure that if it's an unknown that we have ruled out as best we can 90% probability that it's nothing else. So I can't say there was nothing else because I believe it was probably an aircraft. I could be wrong, but again, that's what Flight Radar 24 is, and I need someone to go back and look further back for me now. But that's why I'm coming to that. This is a new case here. This happened at the end of September down in Wright County at about 3:15 in the afternoon. Steve Harrow was on this one. The narrative reads, observed object for about 10 minutes or longer, appeared to be slowly spinning. Towards the end of the sighting, the object straightened and started moving faster in a straight line. Lost sight of it when it went behind a tree, so it was pretty low to the ground. A witness too, so there's two witnesses to this, was observing the object from a different location on the property and said the object vanished shortly after straightening out and gaining speed. I would have dismissed this as some sort of weather balloon, but I feel it was something else since it started to speed up and travel in a straight line. And you had a second witness, and this doesn't really look like a weather balloon to me. It looks more like some type of cylinder or something. But Stephen Harrow's on it. It's in progress, and we're just gonna have to wait to see what happens, what he comes up with. And that is what's going on in Northland.
Chocolate cola. Huh. Well, at least it's not ranch. Yeah, not so much. Not so much of that. You're still here? Do you want some chocolate cola? Yeah, you can go home. It's okay. You can leave. Just, meeting's over. Go. Sheesh. Rest in peace, Mr. Craig.